Hey, it is Sunday. By the way, I don't know where people got the impression that Cosmic Skeptic was supposed to be here. I never told anybody Cosmic Skeptic was here. I got Cheshire, and they're not the same person. So it's kind of weird. People were asking me, people were like, oh, is Cosmic Skeptic coming on? I'm like, no, he's got the coof, man. He got the coof. He's sick. So
I'm certainly not that lovely.
well, hey, no, I tell you what, you can't see it because you're not, unless you look at the outside, but I have you in the video, like in the corner, next to Alex, like your dream come true. So if you like looked over this way and you kind of give him a little kiss in the ear, you might like that. Yeah. Oh, see. All right. Make sure this is.
He's such a sweet. He just seems like the nicest person on the planet, and I'm just not.
He's always been cool to me. I've never had issue with him.
I'm certainly not that lovely.
He's one of those people out there that has never made anything personal, like never bothered. So I've always been cool with him. He's always been cool with me. We've talked a lot about philosophy, especially when he was first going to college and he was kind of feeling out his moral framework. And I remember he was telling people he was a emotivist and a moral subjectivist at the same time, which doesn't make any sense because, as you know, Chesh, one is a moral cognitivist and one is a moral non-cognitivist, right? So it didn't make much sense. So, yes, and Tree Feline, by the way, we do have CC on.
I do remember that. I think I also remember a handful of people making like a big hullabaloo about, oh my God, Steve's going after Alex.
Which is weird too, because I like Alex. I mean, I really have no negative word to say about the guy. He wanted to edify himself. He wanted to educate himself. He wanted to distance himself from the new atheist trademark movement that I think he is now officially came out and said he doesn't really support. Because it doesn't really correspond to the philosophy that he's learning in college. Actual academics, as hashtag Steve was right. Steve's been saying people all along.
That's probably one of the things that I found one of the more amusing ways that he put what he did. But I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll get there. So this video, it's not. By the way, we're not playing the whole video. It's like literally I think 3 minutes of content or something. It's not that much. But it basically,
I don't think we need to critique poor Cosmic Skeptic having covfefe.
Yeah. The other part of this video was him dealing with how he got over his fear of hell. But there was one part two-part questions in here that I think I took notice of. People took notice of, and it was basically him saying, "Hey, look, I'm going to college. The term atheism in the literature in the academia is normally more like the belief that God does not exist, which is a propositional rather than psychological. And he's noticing this, that's all. And by the way, he doesn't actually say that he accepts atheism in the positive as a prescriptive thing. He's not even saying that he even maybe per se uses it that way himself. All he has done in this video is recognize that it is that way in philosophy for the most part. That it's generally that's how it's considered. And he's understanding his reasons for it. That's what I got out of this video. So.
Yeah, it's interesting the backlash he's getting for saying that there's a field of study that uses technical terminology.
Strange, right? I mean, I don't know why anybody would have thought that. That's crazy. Josiah Hansen for $2, a solitary bottle of rocket rum. I'm just drinking coffee today. This is coffee. But thank you, Josiah Hansen. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We'll get into the little pushback that he's gotten. There's some interesting stories that I've noticed in the last couple of days of some new atheist TM and YouTubers that are big mad over this. Very, very salty. And they don't have any good argumentation for it. Matter of fact, they're doing the same thing I see low-level flat earthers do and creationists do and things of that nature. They're just throwing out rhetoric as if somehow it defeats everything that Alex has said. And it's nonsense. Matter of fact, a lot of them are actually, in my opinion, doing a straw man argument. A lot of people throw that argument a lot, saying, oh, you're straw manning. No, they actually are, because I had one person, I'll name it because I don't care. I mean, but Prophet of Zod was saying, something along the lines of, why are people caring about the definition of atheism and why are people so prescriptive about it? And I tagged him. I'm like, yeah, I agree. So why is American atheists so prescriptive about it, saying there's only one usage of the term? I mean, you're going to call them out on it? Silence, it's just like.
Oh, I mean, of course. Somebody in Tree Feline sent me a video. So you remember we watched a video with that monk? Like you watched it and I watched it over on my channel.
Yeah,
well, Prophet of Zod did a video responding to him, and I had to turn on closed captioning because I couldn't understand what he was saying, because he was very mumbled, and I'm like, I didn't recall him being so unclear when he spoke. So I don't know if it was just that video, because I haven't watched in a really long time, and so I was just like, what is he saying? And so that was kind of an interesting experience.
I don't know, because when he's arguing against this kind of stuff, I don't know what he's saying, but it's not because he's mumbling, it's because his argumentation is very poor. I mean,
his argumentation about the friar or the monk, I'm not sure what his technical position is, was essentially to do the thing the monk was complaining about. So the monk was like, can we address arguments, and how do you do this and compare it with this? And Prophet of Zod was just like, that's really pretentious to even ask that kind of question. And it's like,
why are all these people doing arguments to emotions and things of that nature? It's like, look, take the argument for as it is, right?
He seemed to have like a huge chip on his shoulder about like the friar was talking down to him as if he was some kind of father figure. And I'm like, as a short woman, I didn't get that from him.
Yeah, you get talked. Everybody talks down to you because there's not many people smaller than you.
Fact.
Inkport for £2. It's July 4th. What it means? Happy Treason Day. Yeah. Well, you know what? He's got a point, because we did kind of separate from the Brits.
Technically, the truth.
But yes, happy 4th of July. This is the day that everybody goes out and tries to start fires, because they have illegal fireworks, which everybody does for some reason. But yeah, I mean, look, the 4th of July is a proud holiday. I mean, even though it was a rebellion, even though it was a justified rebellion, I think it was treasonous. I mean, that's the British.
So back to the topic at hand.
Anyways,
as Steve's just like American history.
So go ahead.
I didn't do it to you on the 1st. You don't need to do it to me on the 4th.
Well, from what I understand, because we have Juneteenth now, we don't need a 4th of July. Or Independence Day.
Okay.
Or any other holiday. So
I don't care. Take a day off work, whatever. Just find more excuses to do that more. I don't know why you would be against that. But back to the topic. Yeah, I've noticed that. I remember Prophet of Zod being weird when Kyle stole the Non Sequitur show. Mm-hmm. He was weird about that on Twitter, and basically was blaming Steve for what had gone down without having actually.
He was very accusatory. Not gonna front. I'm gonna call it what it is. He was very accusatory, and I don't know why. I never had an issue with Zod, but he didn't know what the hell was going on, and he was making implied accusations, I thought.
Well, he was at Faithless Forum with Kyle, so I mean, obviously.
Yeah, well, so much for the skeptic community, right? Godless scummer for £10. Oh no, a prominent atheist YouTuber has broken from the orthodox atheist thought. The world will end. Seriously, though, I agree with the philosophical definition, but it's not a hill I'm prepared to die on. And it's funny because people started to cancel, Alex. Matter of fact, people started canceling Alex when he was running, he still does, his vegan arguments, which, by the way, I'll tell you, are not bad arguments. Now, I think they're assailable, and I don't think they're perfect. But they're not bad arguments, and you have to at least be able to come up with some kind of defense against it, right? You don't have to necessarily show the argument's flawed or invalid. You just have to show, well, these are the reasons why, maybe not accept it for this, and that's perfectly fine. But like when he was arguing with Matt didn't do that. Matt had no idea how to even go about these things.
Yeah.
And so what it is now is I think they're personally going after him a little bit, and he's seeing the same things that most of us have seen when they can assail one of our arguments. So. Yeah.
I think that there's something a little bit more interesting, though, in what Godless Scummer said here. And it's because he said, I agree with the philosophical definition, but it's not a hill I'm prepared to die on. Why would you need to die on a hill for saying there's a technical, atheists regularly say, well, evolution isn't just a theory because in biology and in science, the word theory means this thing. And everybody's okay with that. Why would that be any different for philosophy and atheism? Hey, listen, you're welcome to use your version, but in the field of philosophy, when you're talking about philosophy, it would be expected that you would use the technical terminology just like theories. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, and it's very, very bizarre to me. And also, I find it odd that, I mean, it makes sense. I don't mean to say that I find it odd that God the Discoverer feels this way. It makes complete sense as to why he feels this way, but it's the behavior that's necessitating or justifying that feeling. That is like, why are people trying to destroy other people because of a technical term?
I think it's more than that. It's not. Here's the thing. I don't understand why it's even an argument. This is just information. This is objective.
It's the evolution is just a theory. Well, atheism is just lack of belief. It's the same
It's exactly the same thing. Yeah, and that's why I've never understood why people balk against this.
And then they turn around and be like, you can't tell people how to define words. And it's like, I can. I can absolutely tell people that.
But here's the thing. That's straw manning. And I get this. I love the fact that I was smart enough to sometimes I do a smart. It's rare, but sometimes I do a smart, and I will say that I'm proud that I did a smart.
He's got to pat himself on the back.
I'm giving myself an attaboy when I.
The moments are few and far between.
That's why I got to take them as they come. Right. In 2018, I made a blog about my positions to avoid being strawman. I call it strawman abatement. People still do, but I can go back and say, no, here's my position. That's the same position I had back then.
Like when I. Like last year when I looked at what Matt Delahunty was saying, what you had said in response, and then looked and saw what you said in like 2018 or something, and it was just like, you do what?
Yeah, well, I mean, even Paul Gia gave me a jab the other day. He's like, hey, remember that next time the discussion with atheism comes up. I always do. I'm the one that has been arguing for like it's not even arguing, just explaining for like 5 years. That you shouldn't prescribe usages to certain words. You shouldn't say there's only one usage. You shouldn't say there's only like based upon etymological historical roots of things. And I'm the one getting crap for telling people what people are saying now, but they think that for some reason I'm telling them about prescriptivism, which is really weird.
It's okay, here's the thing. Somebody that is interested in philosophy or knows what these words mean in the technical field are exactly the people that ought to be saying, well, in philosophy, it's this. So if you're talking about this, no, that's not what's being spoken of. Mm-hmm. And it's the exact same thing as, oh, well, evolution is just a theory. Gravity is just a theory. No, no, it's not. And I can very explicitly explain to you why the word theory is not appropriate to be your changing the word theory in the context to make it convenient for your garbage, bad argumentation. But and it's the same thing with atheism.
But you notice you're doing two good things. You're doing two different things, and I'm fine with both of them. One, you're stating an objective fact that evolution is not just a theory. Same thing as atheism is not just a belief. That is a fact. That's not just opinion. There are other usages which he has recognized, Skeptic has recognized, that exist in philosophy. So therefore, it makes that whole statement false. So that's an objective fact. And then you are adding the value to it. What is the value of having different usages for the term? What has more utility? Those are other discussions to be had. But when people say, like, for example, American Atheist, that it's one thing, they're just fundamentally wrong. And people recognize this because you can't think yourself an objective thinker and a logical reasoner if you look at that and say, oh, this is true. Well, no, I can disprove it. And if you can disprove it, it cannot be true. I mean,
I think it's honestly just a lack of. Okay, once upon a time, people did not bought into the evolution is just a theory. Sorry, I just woke up. I'm not even done my first cup of tea. I don't know what's going on. Evolution is just a theory. People used to buy that argument until more people were educated on the technical terminology of what theory meant in that context. And the same thing applies to philosophy. There aren't enough people that are educated in the technical terminology within philosophy. And philosophy can get really complicated really fast and bog people down really quickly if you're not careful about your approach. So if you start throwing all kinds of jargon at them, like you start throwing ontology and epistemology, and you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them like that. But if you just stick with, in the field of study, this word in this context means this. And so if you can do it to young earth creationists because they're being fallacious when they say evolution is just a theory, or you can do it to flat earthers when they say gravity is just a theory, there's absolutely no reason why a somebody who looks at philosophy can't say, no, in philosophy, atheism is this. Your way of using the term doesn't accurately describe our understanding of the terminology, the technicalities, the yada, 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 yada. Unless you're going to say that, no, young earth creationists and flat earthers are allowed to say, and it's totally reasonable for them to call evolution and gravity just a theory, then if you're not okay with that, then you need to shut up.
There's a little bit of hypocrisy there. Bearded Heretic asks,
just a little bit.
Bearded Heretic asks a wonderful question. I actually love this question. He says, do you guys think technical terms tend to be more prescriptive? Are they required to maintain clear language within a field? And I've had some good discussions on that particular question, actually, not too even that long ago with Ozzy. On what we kind of coined, I don't know if it's coined, I don't know. We called it soft prescriptivism. And because we were trying to figure out, okay, I'm definitely not a hard prescriptivist. I'm a descriptivist, right? But at the same time, if you want to be able to understand the terminology being used in something you read, like the papers and the journals, and to have a conversation on a specific, the domain, or in a domain of discourse on a specific topic with somebody, you ought to use certain terminological terms in a way that's generally understood by the people in that
right,
that domain,
or like
right?
if you
so
don't
it's soft
want to be
prescriptivism.
fallacious.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be fallacious and run into problems with your terminology, that when you enter the discussion, you're going to run into problems like with WASP and with like the special pleading arguments and the semantic collapse argument, then if you want to avoid those pitfalls, you ought not use theism as your basis, because it's going to crumble, because it is not structurally sound internally, nor is it structurally sound in the field in which it's describing.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And that's here's the thing. Like, I would call a hard prescriptivist somebody saying you must use it. A soft prescriptivist would be a soft prescriptivist is not really a true prescriptivist, but it's somebody who just says, look,
there's a difference between,
you ought to,
like,
if you want to understand it. I mean, that's it.
You ought to if you want to be understood, both ways, but also you don't have to. But if you're trying to talk about a subject, it makes sense to have a little bit of technical understanding. And on the other hand, there are some words that are pretty solidly, they are what they are. So if I say the word I, and I'm referring to myself, if I say I to mean my dog, I'm an asshole.
Yeah, because we understand it to be self-referential, right? Your indexical is
right.
Like
most conjunctions, right? Like the word and because and it. Those are words that they mean what they mean, and I would probably be pretty prescriptive about words like that. I'm a little bit prescriptive in the way of, if there is a word that properly describes what you're trying to express, actually use that word instead of using a different word. So, literally and figuratively.
See, I'm the opposite.
Please. Right.
I don't agree with
that one I've let go of, but like here's a better example. Persuade and convince. Those are two different things.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Yeah.
So please know which one you're using.
Yeah, no, I know, and I agree with but to me, those words have utility because they've become ingrained in some society to have a connotation, and that's the big thing.
Yeah,
and so if you start using words completely different, right? People think you have like synesthesia or something. They think you're just, it wouldn't make any sense, right? Wittgenstein called it a private language argument. If you had your own private language, what good is that? Is it even a language, right? Because if nobody else can understand what you're saying, is that an actual language? What good would it do? So we have words that convey certain things, and in a domain of discourse, that's how it is in the literature. So I mean, I've challenged the new atheist and the lack of belief atheist. Show me in the literature where the word usages that you have exist. In a general paper, right? I mean, not like an argumentation paper like we should change this like Flew wrote, but I mean, show me a statement where they use this word in the way that you mean it in a certain domain. Like, for example, like Gnosticism. Sure, in some papers they mean it like the Huxley, right? But they're talking about Huxley. They're talking about that principle. So I get that. But
they're referencing it.
Right.
Yeah, there's
but
context.
if they're talking about your belief as far as God existing, then they don't use that context. So I never have once had anybody really respond to that I recall. So anyways, let's play this video.
Dapper Dino, real quick, Dapper Dino brought up, can we sometime talk about the fact that GE has used Christians agree as an argument against Jesus's historicity?
Yeah, okay, let me give everybody a little piece of advice. If you're listening to GE about anything, you don't want to listen to me. You don't want to come over here. It's just you're not my audience, man. Just don't. You're just go.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's one thing that I think a lot of people. I think that's one thing that a lot of people are switching to, which is why you've got people like Prophet of Zod, people like GE, people like that Evans guy, Lloyd Evans, being maybe a little bit more upset, is people are kind of tired of just the constant, like, we're just gonna beat down on this one thing over and over and over again. Like, it's been a couple of years and there hasn't been a whole lot of change in the discussion, I guess, because there's not a discussion to be had.
What are they going to add?
It's just one group of people trying to... Right, exactly. And so...
What has GE has ever added to the conversation or the dialogue? He's absolutely morbidly stupid. I mean, there's no other words to describe the man. He's just morbidly stupid. So what is he going to add to any dialogue?
Well, the point is that he's not, and I think there's a lot of people who are kind of tired of just that, like this screech. Like, Alex isn't like that.
No, Alex is brilliant.
Alex and genetically modified Skeptic isn't like that.
Genetically modified Skeptic's smart too. Yeah.
Yeah, these are people. Rachel Oates. These are people who are more interested in the actual topics and the technical and scientific and what's the word I'm looking for? The rationale and the philosophy and like the methodology. They're far more interested, which ends up opening up so much more conversation, so many more topics to talk about, and way more nuance. Meanwhile, you've got people on the other side like all they do is screech, and it's basically, all right, I need you guys to rate my GE impression. Hey, heathens, how y'all doing? Have you ever noticed that Christians are always wrong about everything because they're Christians? He's just screeching into a mic. He's just a preacher.
I'm only going to give you
like a crummy televangelist.
I'm only going to give you a C+ in that because one, you forgot to mention your penis size. Two, you didn't mention Josephus.
Oh yeah,
you didn't say Josephus or Tacitus. Therefore,
I made Kent Hovind say whale penis.
Whale penis, baculum.
I'm not gonna lie. I gotta give Dapper credit on this. GE managed to get Kent Hovind to talk about whale penises for some reason, but Dapper got him to say he would have to research what a dinosaur is.
Yeah, I remember that too. I don't know how that came about. I didn't understand
GE doesn't. That's not something to be proud of, GE. But Dapper, spicy.
Dragashar 890 for $5. My opinion on atheism changed after hearing your arguments, and I'm glad to see the Cosmic Skeptic moving away from that as well. I cannot stand GE and those like him. Thank you. Like I said, if you cannot stand, let me tell you what. If you cannot stand the crap that comes out of that side of the fence from people like GE, his wife KC. Let's see, who's the other? Oh, Jimmy Snow, Mr. Atheist. Then you'll probably like this channel because you'll learn something. But if you just want the same rhetoric, yeah, go watch them because it's bad. It's just bad. But anyways, like I said, I like Cosmic Skeptic. I really do, and I feel bad that he's not feeling.
I like
well.
Logic. Logic is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I always got a lot of Logic. Yeah, Logic's great. And I really SEP. His wife.
Yes.
He's great.
Sir Sick. I do enjoy Sir Sick. Like, he's got like a tone and a way about him that is like.
See, I don't remember talking to him. I think we're friends on Twitter, but I don't think I ever talked to him. Have I?
I don't know. I saw him accidentally following one of the fake Steve McRae accounts, so you might want to reach out to him.
Yeah, I mean, we had Bunty. I know we had Bunty on.
We never had I don't know. I don't think Sir Sick has ever been on. I asked him if he was interested in coming on to Non Sequitur sometime. He said yeah, so I...
But yeah, no, Logic I'm a huge fan of, and his wife. They're great. All right, so let's kind of play this video because we're already running late. We don't have too much time. I got a podcast to do, and I don't know. Chester's got
let's go.
She got Canadian stuff.
Me a quarter.
Oh, Bearded Heretic wants a request for an AIR shout out. Answers in Reason. Go read their blog and watch their videos. Two of the best people on philosophy that I know, Joe and Dave. Oh, I just doxed them. Crap.
What are your plans for the future? Vying to be the 5th member of the 4 Horsemen of Atheism? No. Presuming you mean the 4 Horsemen of New Atheism. There.
Let me play that over again so I get through. It wasn't very loud.
Keep me accordingly. What are your plans for the future? Vying to be the 5th member of the 4 Horsemen of Atheism? No. Presuming you mean the 4 Horsemen of New Atheism there. I hope it should be clear by now that I'm really not trying to affiliate with the New Atheist movement.
Okay, so let's stop it there. So he was asked the question because he wants to be the one of the 4 Horsemen. Now I actually know somebody, and I'm not going to call him out. Okay, I'm not going to say it but I do know somebody who wants to be considered part of the new 4 Horsemen. Now I don't think that's ever going to happen, but whatever. I mean, so some people want to. He doesn't want to, and he made it very clear.
People have dreams. It's okay to dream.
More power to you, but I mean, I think it's pretty lofty aspiration. But I do you, man. But he's actually been distancing himself, and I'm only going to speculate this, but I think a lot of it is because of his veganism arguments. He has seen the way he's been treated by Matt Dillahunty and other people in the New Atheist community that don't really have great argumentations against him and have been vilifying him rather than actually trying to give solid argumentations against what he's saying. Now, do I think he's a little bit, much on his veganism? Yeah, but do I think his argument's bad? No. But I think he's seeing the anti-intellectualism of New Atheism, especially from the online New Atheism. I think he's recognizing that the 4 Horsemen are a lot more into rhetoric than they are academia. You don't see Dawkins quoted for philosophical things in the literature. It just doesn't happen. Matter of fact, I don't see him even quoted for biology for that much. I mean, he wrote The Selfish Gene how many decades ago, and even then that most biologists don't really even accept it. So, but...
Well, there's the thing is what I think that there could be, so I don't think though with the way things are right now there will be more like a set of new horsemen. It doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. Now, could it absolutely could have if egos did not get from people seeing Matt, Steve, Aaron, and Seth Andrews all working together doing talks about this shit would have been fucking amazing. That would have been great. I'd have loved to see
I had great conversations
like
back in the day with Aaron. We, got along exceptionally well, but he decided to go the route of this I have to defend New Atheism, lack of belief atheism at all cost, to the point of actually not understanding logic.
At all cost. It's what Godless Scummer was saying. It's the hill to die on.
They were dying on that.
Why would you choose to do that? You can just disagree. Like Steve's not going to run around being a dick.
Yeah, I just say, look, you're wrong. You're making a fundamental error, right? An objective error, not just a matter of opinion. That's I think this is better.
But he can just not talk about it.
There's an opinion to be had when it's subjective, such as, hey, I think this has more utility than this, right? That's fine. There's no objective matter to be had.
That's a whole other conversation, correct, which is great.
But when you tell me,
I'd love to have that conversation.
When you tell me that not B, not P is a double negative, and you have every logician on Twitter going, dude, no, it's not a double negative. Stop saying it's a double negative. And on Facebook, telling people it's wrong, and yet they're, people saying double negative. It's like, stop doing that. Or worse than that, I think, is when they start using the null hypothesis. It's like they have absolutely no idea what a null hypothesis is, right? I mean, what the hell does a null hypothesis have to do with atheism? It's experimental science. It's for empiricism. It's for something that you can reject. It makes no sense to say that atheism is null. But anyways, so that's the question that's the setup for this, right?
Oh, Lawrence Krauss, Steve Malpass, and Aaron. That's my 4.
Awesome.
That would be a good. That's actually not an impossible 4.
I'm honored. You guys are putting me up there pretty high. I'm a D- list or a tuber, man. YouTuber. I'm like the D- list.
But it's not about how popular you are on YouTube. It's about whether or not you'd be able to carry yourself in like debates, in like universities, traveling around in interviews and stuff to sort of address the differences between having a conversation about whether or not God exists and presenting those arguments versus having a conversation about whether or not religion is a good or bad way to go about things. I think atheists, particularly ones that are trying to make political change in their local area because their local religion is really problematic, would do far better to have discussions about the problems with religion rather than trying to discuss the existence of God if they wanted to make more positive
I agree
change.
with that. I think it should be. Yeah, look, they probably should more focus on secularism and humanism.
That's why the original fucking horsemen were so good at what they were doing, because they weren't actually talking about the existence of God. They were talking about problematic stuff. They weren't really talking that much philosophy. So but when people pick on their philosophy, I find it kind of odd because they weren't trying to talk about philosophy too much. I find that they were more trying to talk about the social standard and expectations of people who supposedly believe in this great deity who has these tenets of goodness, right?
But don't you think I kind of held my own and agreed to argue? I thought I did okay. In fact, somebody
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't believe it's on the other day. Somebody on Facebook said, "Hey, Steve, when are you going to ever debate a theist?" I'm like, "What? Hello, my first debate was with a theist, Wayne Fillmore. He left Young Earth Creationism over it. He left Young Earth Creationism over our debate, and somebody has the balls to ask me when I'm going to debate a theist. I also debated, true empiricism. I also, did a show, Agree to Argue, where I had theists come on, and I, in real time, argued against them. That's not a debate, but it's like, holy crap, people.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of space on Non Sequitur once it's back to bring more theists on of varying degrees. Like the group of 3 or 4 Muslims that we're talking to Aaron. I would love to bring one or two of those guys on at a time and talk more about Muslim philosophy, because if you don't understand Muslim philosophy, how do you possibly argue against it?
Somebody, when they get a chance, or you, when you get a chance, can I put this video on Twitter, right, to let people know about it? Text or Sick in it and see if he ever wants to, just hang out with us. Because I'm trying to remember who the hell he is. I know people have mentioned it before to me, and I know you've talked about it. I know you're a fan of him. And I'm trying to think, am I a fan of him? I don't remember. Maybe he wants to come on and, just hang out. All right.
Movement. I know I kind of used to. I used to really, really, really like Christopher Hitchens. I've even got a bust of him sat on my shelf just there if you hadn't noticed already. And of course, I've had Richard Dawkins on the podcast.
Do you notice he said past tense, and I really, really liked Hitchens, and I don't think that was intentional. I'm not going to read into that in any which way. I'm a fan of Hitchens. I actually am. As somebody who's against this bullshit new atheism crap that these people are spewing out, Hitchens was a brilliant rhetorician. God, I hate that word. He was brilliant at rhetoric. He knew how to use it. He was good at arguments. I'm not saying every one of his arguments was great, but for a debate,
it was presented well. Yeah.
Very articulate, very educated, very erudite. If you wanted, because he was a journalist kind of guy, but he knew about history. He understood the concepts, and so I'm a big fan of Hitch. Dawkins, not so much, but yeah, he said, I used to be a fan of kind of Hitchens things. I don't think he meant was in the past tense like that though, but.
No, he even talks about having a bust in the back.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give him a little, charity on that one.
And we'd love to have Sam Harris on too, but
I would love to have Sam Harris on too.
I really don't think that these guys are particularly, how can I say this, theologically adequate.
I love the way he put that. He's like, I don't think they're theologically adequate. And okay, so I'm gonna try to read into this, and you can kind of give me your read into this, Josh, that what he meant by the theologically adequate. Now, I'm not a theologian. I will tell you right now, I hate theology. I am not interested in theology. I don't give a shit about theology. I just don't. I'm not. I don't care about what's in the Bible. I'll read it and talk about it with people, but I don't care about theology. But
I don't think he means theology. I think he means philosophy.
No, I don't know. Does he? I don't know what Dawkins, Hitchens, and Harris and them. I don't know what their biblical understandings are. I don't really see them talking about the Bible much. But
right, they weren't they didn't study
they're not scholars
theology.
In the Bible.
They weren't. No, they weren't attacking Christian theology too much. They were attacking religious behaviors. Which is a whole different conversation. I don't really think he meant theology. I think he meant like the study of philosophy and the the fundamentals of the God question, which, interestingly enough, during at least their debates and most of their presentations on video, I'm not sure about the books, but they weren't debating theology. Now, he might be saying that maybe somebody part of that group ought to have been somebody who studied theology. That would have been really interesting to bring in a theologist into sort of
Dr.
that
Josh.
fold. Yeah, to
He's
have
not a
those
theologian, but he knows his stuff. Or Steve Dimitri, is that how you pronounce his last name? Stephen the PhD.
Ask me how to pronounce things.
He's an atheist Bible expert. Dimitri. He's been on the show before.
Oh, okay.
A long time ago.
Yeah. I think that's more what he means. Either like maybe not necessarily as individuals, but as a group. But I don't think he meant theology.
Okay.
Like technically, I think
That's a hell of a
honestly,
face, though.
I read this. That's a good one. I like that. That needs to be like a meme. Can we meme this?
So
lack theism question mark
in the video. So basically, this is your brain on GE.
Oh God, this is your brain on lack theism.
Yes, exactly.
He looks like he tasted something sour, and he was just like, I don't like it.
Yeah, he's not a
But
fan.
I could be wrong. He might have meant theology, but he might have meant it as like the group rather than the individuals, because none of them were ever discussing theology. So I don't think that would.
They really,
at least not that I'm aware
didn't.
of.
They were not really talking about theology per se, right?
That's why I think he means like he means philosophy. Like they weren't philosophically adequate when it comes to like epistemology and ontology.
Right. And I agree with that. All right.
I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I guess I just haven't found their philosophy, if it can even be called that, particularly adequate when it
Like you said, I don't find their philosophy particularly adequate. I bet, but see, here's the thing. How long have I said that? I don't go to Richard Dawkins. I did a blog on the Dawkins scale, and it wasn't one of my best writings. I will admit this. It was one of my earlier stuff, and I probably did go in and probably revamp it a little bit. It wasn't horrible, but I admit it wasn't one of my best. But it's a shit scale. It's a shit scale.
I actually don't think the scale is that bad. I think the framing around it is more of the problem. I think people take
the way he
it
describes
not
it
in
is
the
pretty
way
bad,
that
actually.
he described. Yeah. I think he described it not in what he meant. So I think he more meant he was talking about certainty, not belief. And because he was speaking in layman's terms, because he's not a philosopher, he ended up saying belief. So like, I kind of believe, but I kind of don't believe. So I'm like at about this scale. What he meant was like certainty and knowledge. If you change it to that, the scale is far better.
I think it could be reworked a little bit better. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's an argument to be had there, but the way he described them was just absolute bullshit. I'm more trying to pick on. I try to prefer to pick on what people are trying to say rather than what they've literally said a lot of the times, particularly when they're not a professional in the field. So Richard Dawkins is not a professional in the field of philosophy or epistemology. It makes complete sense for him to have flubbed up certainty and belief in when he's just talking a little bit more candidly. He wasn't making a formalized argument. Yeah, right? I completely agree with that.
He was just trying to express and explain to people the way he sort of broke it down in his own mind. And so I try to be a little bit more charitable when it comes to stuff like that, because people do weird things.
The existence of God. I mean, Christopher Hitchens, obviously a fantastic polemicist, but just nothing of philosophical substance, as I've discussed at length in a previous video. Again,
I watched a little bit of that. I need to watch the whole thing, but I know he got a lot of flack for that video with Christopher Hitchens. But the parts that I did see, again, I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't see any issue. He's right. I mean, Hitch was a statesman. I mean, he was a good orator. He was a polemicist. A rhetorician.
He's a writer.
He was a writer. So he was. I mean, he knew how to convey things to an audience. Now, did he have great philosophical arguments? Not necessarily so, right?
He wasn't talking about philosophy.
Right, he was a philosopher. And that's the point that cosmic skeptics made. People, I don't understand why people. Okay, let's say you do like theology, right? If you want to discuss theology, theological concepts, you want to talk about philosophy, why do you quote people like Hitch? Not you, but in general, why do people quote Hitch or Dawkins or Harris on any of that stuff? I don't understand that. I mean, sure, if you want to talk about moral philosophy, Harris, yeah, of course. But what the hell does Richard Dawkins know about moral philosophy? I don't think a goddamn thing.
I think Richard Dawkins would be confused as to why you were citing him about that, quite frankly. That's why when we heard from Landon that Richard Dawkins was like, yo, look out for that new atheist group. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean,
they're like a bunch of fanatics that followed the Four Horsemen and then just like didn't like that the Four Horsemen couldn't be led to where they wanted to go.
But then riddle me this. I quote people like Paul Davies, Draper, right? I quote Draper. I quote G. Moore. I quote McCormick, who's wrote the IEP article for atheism. And all these atheist people that I'll sit there and quote, and people don't take notice of it. They don't seem to care, right? Mackey. I mean, Mackey was. If you want to read some atheist stuff, go read Mackey. Great stuff that he wrote. But
listen, it's because you're Steve. Fuck you, Steve.
But I understand. It's like how people that love atheism, people that talk about atheism, have all these shows on atheism, right, from the ACA. How many of them have already read any atheist authors besides the popular ones like Smith or Martin? I mean, sure, they might have read the newspaper, but they don't read any other crap. I don't think.
Godless Scummer says, I hate to bring this up, but to give an idea about the mentality of new atheists, I brought up something Madeleine Murray O'Hare said about the Holocaust, and I was crucified for it. You ought not to be. That's problematic
she
behavior.
She seemed like a very nice person.
Of groupthink. I mean, yeah, but that doesn't mean she was technically wrong about whatever it is that he was referencing.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the quote. But
Hitler can have a point. You know what I mean? Thanos might have a point sometimes. Could be a genocidal maniac, but that doesn't mean like you can get serial killers that make a point. It's
a genetic fallacy.
Right. Again, the link is in the description. Richard Dawkins, fantastic scientist, yada yada. But again, I'm reading The God Delusion. Who was it? That's right, it was Terry Eagleton's. Eagleton once wrote, imagine someone holding forth on biology whose only knowledge of the subject is the Book of British Birds, and you have a rough idea of what it feels like to read Richard Dawkins on theology. And
I haven't read that guy. I don't know who he is, but that I could picture how that makes sense, right? I don't know who that author is. But
I like that.
But yeah.
I would have more of a problem with Dawkins if he professed to be a philosopher or a theologist. He never has. Now, that doesn't mean he can't have an opinion on it. Sure. But
maybe he might have an opinion. I'm a layperson with opinions. So what? Yeah.
Well, it's particularly because people were asking him to expound upon something that he's not well versed in and expecting him to be you can't be well studied in everything.
Yeah, but at the same token, if you're going to, for example, say somebody is incorrect on something and you cite Richard Dawkins, I'm not going to take you very seriously unless it's biology, right? I mean, you're talking about something along the lines of something that he's
right,
expert
exactly.
in. That's fine. I mean, I whatever. But I mean, when we're talking
I'm going to reference him if I'm talking about giraffe larynx.
Sure. But I mean, I just don't understand how they throw these things at me in the things that I've argued in my argumentation. When they think by fiat, they quote some of the Four Horsemen, and it's like, oh, sure, look, Steve's wrong. Or some atheist YouTuber, look, Steve's wrong. That's not a defeater. I'm sorry, it's just not a defeater to my arguments.
Probably
it is
right
on
there.
the internet.
I mean, there's a reason why over the past 3 years of studying philosophy at Oxford, someone like Richard Dawkins hasn't been named once except to be essentially ridiculed in the Science and Religion paper. It's a bit unfortunate.
To the literally surprise of nobody that probably watches my channel. Why would he be quoted in any of that stuff?
Well, exactly.
I've been saying I mean, it's probably been over half a decade that these are not the people you want to look up to for atheism. These are not the people you want to go to if you want to learn about the topic. They're not in any way, in my opinion, experts or even knowledgeable about atheism. They're knowledgeable about popular atheism, perhaps, but they're not knowledgeable about academic atheism. Well, and so he's saying that, look, I've gone to Oxford now for 3 years. They don't talk about any of these people. They're not even relevant in the field.
Yeah, well, that's what he's referencing, like the sort of the ideology and the dogma within the new atheist communities, or however you want to phrase it, groups, and it's that they reference these people as if they know what they're talking about, while not understanding that they're not even referenced in the field. That's how little they have to say on these topics. Godless Scummer also clarified, to give context, she said something that bordered on Holocaust denial, but because she's an atheist, sacred cow, I was cast out for bringing it up in the first
I kind of do
place.
remember something on those
atheists should not be going around allowing Holocaust deniers because they're atheists.
Right?
That's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you know how many times people have, like on Facebook, people throw in, well, here's a quote by Matt Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty would tear you up, and I'm like, oh, really?
Okay, tell him to come find me. I'll bring milk and cookies.
I have never said I wanted to debate Matt. I've never gone out of my way to. I've never asked him. I've not once have I said any of that sort, right? So people are like, oh, Steve's just, wanted to debate Matt. No, I don't care. I've never said anything of the sort. I mean, I would have a conversation with him if he wanted to, but I mean, I've never wanted to go debate him. But I have talked to the man. I mean, he has been on the show. But
notice that there's a difference, by the way, between the word should and can't.
Of course. Yeah. But them throwing out that name like, oh, well, Matt Dillahunty disagrees with you. I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
Who cares?
What the hell do I care if Matt Dillahunty disagrees with me? I think he makes a hell of a lot of mistakes. So what?
Tell me where Matt Dillahunty is cited in any philosophical paper whatsoever.
Never.
And where are you cited, Steve? And what are you working on right now, Steve?
I'm not cited anywhere, but my arguments are talked about. But I'm trying to publish a paper. It's in the works. Dr. Malik has got it to certain people that are reviewing it. I've had probably a dozen people that I know review it, including mathematicians, PhD students. I have had some PhDs, but they're not in the field review it, like mathematicians, PhDs. But so
I think I recall you saying you were cited by somebody in particular, not that.
I wasn't cited. I was acknowledged. I was in a couple.
Acknowledged.
I was acknowledged. Dr. Dr. Lachelle in his paper acknowledged me for contributing to the facilitation of conversation between Dr. Humphreys, Hankey, and Lachelle. And I was mentioned in the journal Creation a couple times. I think I know at least once.
I feel like that probably counts like a little bit of an accreditation that.
Well,
or you could just hang up on people on the internet. I don't know.
but the thing is this: I have had these arguments for a while. WASP has been out for a while. I now have the atheist, and I now have the atheist semantic argument, or collapse argument, which, by the way, I have not made public the formalized version. The formalized version is much more formalized. It is of academic quality, I think. I just put in the blog a very short version of it. But I have yet to have anybody refute that. Not a single person has assailed that argument. The best somebody has said is, well, so what? Okay, so but what good is it? What utility, what value does it have? I'm like, well, that's a whole different argument. I don't care. You can sit there and say it has no value whatsoever. I disagree vehemently, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean the argument's wrong, right? So, but yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. To quote these people as a defeater for argumentation, think they're so intellectually superior in the realm of atheism, when none of them talk about atheism. I mean, the atheist community of Austin is not the atheist community of Austin. It's the atheist community of agnosticism. They just don't want you to believe. That's it. That's what they're promoting.
But it's kind of just the way it is. I think the biggest skill that the new atheists had collectively was their oratory skills, right? They could debate, they could speak to an audience, and they could win them over, right? But when you actually sit down and analyze the philosophical substance of what they're saying, you find that there's not actually much substance to be analyzed in the first place.
So he's basically saying, look, these people do not have that much philosophical content. They have not that great of philosophical arguments.
Right.
And
that was never the goal. Their goal was never to have good philosophical arguments or discussion. Their goal was to bring to light that atheism isn't necessarily the devil, and religion isn't necessarily, particularly the Catholic Church and young earth creationism type stuff, is not necessarily technically correct, nor a good or positive influence on the world. That's what their goal was to spread awareness. It wasn't to educate people in most of this argumentation, except for the fields that they're actually studied in. So like Cross and Richard Dawkins did put an effort into allowing people and enabling people to understand things like evolution is just a theory.
Yeah, but I think they made the mistake of wrapping it into atheism. They should have wrapped it into secularism and humanism.
I think that they did it again. I think it's a branding thing. They might have been better off had they had a philosopher. Like, I mean, Dennett.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he's more of a philosopher of mind.
Dennett worked with them.
But
well, yeah, and so that's a whole different brand of philosophy. So they may have done.
They should have had
a little bit better service.
They should have Grand Oppie. If you're an atheist and you haven't read Oppie, you're a bad atheist. You're a bad atheist. I'm sorry, you're just a bad atheist.
Yeah, there you go.
Oppie is one of the best atheist philosophers I've ever read. I mean, he makes very good arguments, and he's cited. I mean, people respect him. Why? Because he actually contributes to the dialogue. I've never heard any of the Four Horsemen contribute any actual argumentation to the dialogue. Now, Hitchens, for example, like Hitchens' razor, right? Oh, sure, it's a great rule of thumb. Is it really useful to philosophy? Not really.
It's not how epistemology works.
Yeah, and so
epistemology doesn't quite work like that, nor does it necessarily apply to burden of proof type stuff. It's a rhetorical device in a debate. Right, but that doesn't really apply when you're talking on Twitter with somebody who has presented evidence that you've not accepted. Those are different. Those are very different things, and I think people like to throw out Hitchens' razor instead of actually engaging in discussion, because a lot of, I think, Lactheists and the atheism plus whatever community is trying to shut down conversation.
Yeah, and by the way, Harris is a great in philosophy. Yes, I know that. But yeah, no, I agree with you, because the fact is
there you go.
That a lot of them just use that as a counter. Oh, well, if you don't have any evidence, therefore I can dismiss it. And again, as a rule of thumb, sure, you can. It doesn't mean you ought to. Doesn't mean you should. There's a lot of times when things are submitted without evidence, doesn't mean that you should just dismiss it or not accept it. It's actually irrational, I think, to do so in some cases. So
no, I mean, I'm not trying to kind of make atheism a big deal. It's just kind of there. It's just, I don't believe in God. Whoop-de-doo. I don't really want to make a big song and dance about it. I'm also increasingly entering into this debate about the usage of the word atheism and whether it's appropriately used to describe simply a lack of belief in God.
Okay, so he's getting down into the whole is appropriately used as just lack of God. And again, I don't, you know what, I'm gonna fast forward this. This is a weird frame to stop on.
I've always
people might take that and run with it for a meme, and I happen to like Alex, so don't do that. But this is where he starts going, hey, maybe I'm having second thoughts on, because he had a discussion with Richard Dawkins, and he was very much in that atheism is just a lack of belief camp. He's changing that. Matter of fact, it was Dawkins who actually argued that atheists should stop saying babies were born atheists and were born atheists. He thinks that's a bad argument, I think he makes a good point, which I have said all along, that it's a form of indoctrination. If if the theist says, look, my baby was born with a belief in God, my baby is born Catholic. Okay, Catholic is a religion. I don't think it makes sense to say you're born a particular religion. If you want to say you're specific ethnicity or something like that, okay, I get that. But a religion is something you choose. I don't like the fact that you're born into a religion. But I'll at least make the capitulation. I mean, you're
born into it in like the colloquial sense of you were born into a family that follows this religion, but you're not literally that thing when you pop out.
Yeah, they don't come out, wanted to take, the Eucharist or something.
I would be way more into like the Pope is divinely ordained if the next Pope was born with a Pope hat.
That would be interesting. But even Dawkins had recognized that babies are not born atheist, and so he started to move away from that lack of belief kind of thing too, because it just doesn't make sense.
Do we want to do a part 2?
Yeah, we're almost through this. Do you have to leave it exactly new?
Yeah. I gotta get out of here.
Okay.
Very strongly
so
advocated
you have a show to be on.
Just means a lack of belief.
It's a podcast, but yeah, it's taped.
In God. But studying at university, I found that This just kind of doesn't exist in the academy, right? Like in academic works, it's always used, the term, atheism, and it's always defined in all of the dictionaries, all the philosophical dictionaries, as the belief that God does not exist.
Wow, who could have guessed that? I don't know why anybody didn't tell me this. How come all these years I've been on YouTube and nobody let me know about this, Cheshire? Why?
You know who actually told me about it? Aaron Ra's references in his blog.
Yeah.
They all said that.
and Richard Randolph, who references his own blog.
Oh God.
In his reference list, he goes back to his homepage. But I've been saying this for a very long time. Is that now? I will say that there are some people out there in the philosophical communities that have written papers trying to convince people to make atheism more understood in the lack of case, the lack of belief case. Now, again,
Yes.
Flew did that in 1972 with the Presumption of Atheism. Stephen Bullivant, and he's the editor of the Oxford Handbook of Atheism. In his first paper in there, he doesn't say atheism is specifically one thing or another. What he says is that he thinks it should be based upon the etymological roots. He doesn't give reasons why, I don't think. And he is a theist. I don't know why a theist would want to, but whatever. I'm not trying to do a genetic
I thought we
fallacy.
weren't allowed to reference theists because they've got agendas.
Yeah, it's weird. That's like the quote Bullivant, not realizing that Stephen Bullivant is a theist. But he has argued that it makes more sense to do it from etymological roots. I
If
disagree
he was
with him.
trying to troll atheists, he did a really good job.
Right? But if you read the rest of the...
If he actually did have an agenda of trying to make atheists look bad, he's done a very good job.
Exactly. But if you read the rest of the articles in that handbook, I think it's chapter 4 or 6, I don't remember, but Oppie is, shits all over this. So Oppie has a really good article in there as well. So, yeah. So basically... Cosmic Skeptic has seen the light. He has seen that in philosophy, this is generally the usage. And there's reasons for it. He's recognizing there's reasons for it. You cannot sit there and say, you want to be part of the rational community. You want to be part of the critical thinkers. You want to be a skeptic. And then have a shit usage of a term that devalues it to the point where it has no utility whatsoever and actually causes ambiguity and possible absurdities. Like, Aaron Ra going around telling people that rocks are atheist.
I think there's a value to having the conversation about utility because I honestly don't think the lap theist definitions have very good utility. I think the utility is fallacious and mostly false. It just falsely inflates numbers for political reasons. And I'm not a big fan of quantity over quality.
I agree.
I'm not
1,000%.
I'm not a big fan of stuff like that. And that's a great conversation to have. If we could get there. We can never get there.
Well, no, I had that with Holando. That guy came on, and we actually and he was one of the first people ever to get that far in the conversation, and it was very productive.
Yes.
So we are going to end this. We did want to get this to noon. You can go watch the rest of it. I think that this really is the point I just wanted to get to. That he recognizes
most of the next parts we'd just be repeating what we've already said.
Yeah. So
I think we like Cosmic Skeptic, and even if he didn't agree with us, we would still like him because he's just a pleasant guy and who doesn't deserve a lot of the hate that he's getting. Maybe we can go over the Twitter stuff on my channel since my channel does more Twitter stuff.
Yeah, but you notice the hate he's getting is the crap that I'm getting. I mean, he's got hate from Lloyd Evans, who blocked me a couple of days ago because I kept calling out his bullshit.
That guy went way offside.
Way off. I mean, way out. Lloyd Evans is, he's great for his JD stuff, but he got multiple fallacies wrong. He's completely incompetent when it comes to philosophy. I'm sorry, Lloyd. You are incompetent. I've explained philosophy to you in no uncertain terms on Facebook before. People explain to you that you got basic fallacies wrong. I'm not the only one that explained. He doesn't want to understand. He doesn't want to understand. He doesn't care, which is fine. I mean, but this is the pushback that I see.
Sure, but don't yell. Don't force that onto other people.
Yeah,
that's your problem. That's not anybody else's problem.
Here's my thing. People want to learn. Let them learn. Right? He literally had said in a tweet, I don't want to hear otherwise because they're just wrong. They're just wrong. I don't want to hear anyways, something to that effect. It's like, okay, you don't want to hear it, but other people do. And because they want to understand these things. And I've been saying for so long that people like Arn and Matt and that lack atheist community have gotten philosophical things wrong. And I have been very, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. It's I'm not aggressive at it, but I've stood my ground, right? I've stood my ground because I've always known I've been right on this.
You've been dying on that hill for 6 years, Steve.
Yeah,
Why aren't you dead yet?
But you know what? I didn't get popular because because I didn't suck up to those people. And had I sucked up to them, I probably would have had more popularity, right? I would have been one of them.
I still have a channel.
Yeah, exactly. I would have been canceled. But that's okay. You know what? I stand tall because I have integrity, and I was not going to let them tell me things that I knew to be incorrect. And I appreciate the fact that Cosmic Skeptic, who has a much bigger channel, has recognized those things. And now, will I ever get any recognition from any of the other new atheists? No, not going to happen.
I have to go, but I really would love to have a chat with Alex at some point about sort of less about the technical side and a little bit more, because I'd love to have the technical chat too and the utility chat, but I would really love to have a conversation about sort of how he feels about this, because I know he was already getting alienated from the rationality rule stuff and from there was kind of like a schism almost between like the UK and America, and I would love to hear like his thoughts about sort of like the social situation of those times, just because I think it'd be valuable. And
like I said, I have an email. I used to talk to him a lot in email, and I have messaged him on email, but I know he has the coof. He's not feeling well, so we'll worry about that. But anyways, guys, wrapping it up. I don't think I've got anything to really promote. Tomorrow, join us 11 o'clock Pacific time. Jessica and I are doing a Ask Us Anything. She can lie to you. I'm going to try to avoid that, obviously, because that's not my thing. I will try to answer any question I could possibly answer. There might be some I just tell you to fuck off, but I'm going to answer as many as I possibly can. But anyways,
that is an answer.
Cosmic Skeptic, Scummer 5 pounds. I like Lloyd, but he doesn't understand the argument from authority fallacy. Nor in hominem. We got in a very massive discussion on my Facebook on ad hominem, and people were telling me he didn't understand it properly. And he certainly doesn't understand authority fallacy. He got it so wrong. It boggles my mind. Even Martin, was it who was it that was jumping in? Martimer 81, who knows fallacies very well. He's even telling people, that they don't understand fallacies very well. He and I always talk about fallacies.
I don't like people who go off the handle like that and go into personal attacks like that at the drop of a hat. Just because
he got very personal. He got very belligerent with me very quickly, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm not. That was way at a left side. It was incredibly inappropriate. I don't like people that do stuff like that. But that's just me. Well, I'm not saying whether
that wasn't our first. We gotta get out of here, guys. So. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave some comments. Let me know what you guys think, and let people know #Steve was right, and let people these lack of belief atheists out there go learn some philosophy. Cheers.